It was 3:12 a.m. when my phone began to ring. I remember the sound cutting through the stillness like a blade. The world outside my window was silent, the kind of silence that only exists in the hours between night and dawn, when even time seems to hesitate. I reached out groggily, half awake, expecting to see another spam number, maybe a wrong call. But when my eyes adjusted to the glow of the screen, my blood turned cold. The name flashing there wasn't a stranger's. It was Ethan, my son. The same boy I had buried 15 years ago. For a long second, I simply stared, unable to move. The phone kept ringing, steady, insistent. 5 rings, 6, 7, as if whoever was calling already knew I'd hesitate. My mind started to fight itself. This couldn't be real. Ethan's number hadn't been used since the day of his funeral. I had kept it active all these years for one reason only, to hear his voice on the voicemail when the silence became too heavy. "Hey, it's Ethan. Leave a message, I'll get back to you." That line had been my lifeline through endless nights. But this wasn't voicemail. This was an incoming call. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The rational part of my brain screamed not to answer, that it had to be a glitch or someone's sick idea of a prank. But the other part, the one that still remembered how his laugh filled the house, refused to ignore it. I pressed accept. At first, there was only static. Then came the sound of breathing, slow, uneven, human. I opened my mouth to speak, but no sound came out. I felt the weight of every heartbeat pressing against my ribs. Then, a whisper. "Mom!" That one word shattered me. It was him. The same soft tone, the same way he used to stretch the M when he wanted my attention. I knew it instantly. You can forget faces, even the smell of someone's shirt after enough years, but you never forget your child's voice. "Ethan." I managed to choke out, my voice barely audible. "Mom, it's so dark in here. Where am I?" The air in my lungs froze. My mind spun between disbelief and terror. Every instinct screamed it can't be, but the part of me that had never stopped mourning already believed. His words were shaking, frightened, real. He sounded young, confused, exactly as he did the night of the accident. I tried to steady my voice. "Ethan, where are you calling from? How did you?" He cut me off, panic rising in his tone. "I don't know. I can't move. It's cold, and I can't see anything. Mom, please help me." Tears blurred my vision. I gripped the phone tighter, desperate for logic, but none existed. Ethan was gone. I'd seen his body, touched his hand as it turned cold in the hospital, watched them close the casket. I'd stood by his grave. This couldn't be happening. Yet the voice in my ear was undeniably real. "Ethan, listen to me. Tell me what you see." I feel something rough. Wood. There's a smell, like dirt. It's tight here. I can't move my arms. My heart stopped. Wood. Dirt. A coffin. Every hair on my body stood up. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The room around me felt smaller, the shadows thicker, as if they too were listening. "Ethan, do you remember anything? The last thing before this?" I asked, my throat raw. Silence for a long moment, then a faint sob. The crash. I remember the rain. The lights. Then nothing. "Mom, I'm scared." I pressed a trembling hand over my mouth to stop myself from screaming. I didn't know if I was losing my mind or if I was speaking to something beyond comprehension. But I knew one thing for certain. The voice was my son's. I tried to speak, to calm him, to ask questions, but before I could, the line began to crackle. His breathing grew faster. "Mom, don't hang up. Please. The light, it's fading. Ethan. Ethan, stay with me." I shouted, but the static swallowed his voice. Then, silence. The call ended. I sat there in the dark, clutching the phone like a lifeline, waiting for it to ring again. But it didn't. I checked the call log. No record. No missed call. No number. Just empty screen. As if it had never happened. My body shook uncontrollably, the kind of trembling that doesn't come from cold but from something deeper, fear that claws at your soul. I looked toward the small framed photo on my bedside table, the one taken on Ethan's 17th birthday, and whispered, "If that was really you, I'm coming." Somewhere between grief and madness, a decision formed. I didn't know what waited for me at his grave, but I knew one thing. I could no longer pretend he was gone forever. 15 years ago, I lost my son on a rainy Thursday night, a night that never really ended for me. I still remember the call from the hospital, the sterile voice of a stranger asking if I was the mother of Ethan Ward. I didn't need to hear the rest. A mother's heart knows when the world stops turning. The sound of that phone call has never left my ears. Sometimes, when the wind moves through the house just right, it feels like it's ringing again. Ethan was only 17. He had a smile that could pull you out of any darkness, and a way of talking that made you believe the world was still good. He was coming home from his part-time job at the bookstore when a drunk driver ignored the red light at the intersection near Willow Street. The crash was instant, merciless. They said he didn't suffer, but no one who's lost a child believes that. There's always suffering, if not theirs, then ours. I remember seeing him in the hospital, the machines turned off, the pale blue light casting shadows across his face. His skin was cold, too cold for someone who was always warm. I touched his cheek, hoping some impossible miracle would happen, that he'd open his eyes and say, "Mom, it's okay." But miracles, I learned that night, are rare, or maybe they just come too late. After the funeral, people told me time would heal. It doesn't. Time doesn't heal. It only teaches you how to hide the wound where no one can see it. I buried my son, but I never buried the sound of his laugh, or the way he used to sing off-key in the car. His absence became the loudest presence in my life. His father, Mark, tried to move on. He said grief was swallowing me whole, and he couldn't watch it anymore. Within 6 months, he packed his bags and left, taking what little light remained in the house. I didn't blame him. We both mourned differently. He ran away from the memories, and I built my life around them. Our 20-year marriage ended quietly, just like that. One signature on a piece of paper, one more grave for love. Ethan's room became my sanctuary. I couldn't change a thing. His sneakers still sat by the door, his math notebook still open on the desk, his half-finished model airplane collecting dust on the windowsill. Sometimes I'd sit on his bed and pretend he had just stepped out for a moment. The smell of his old cologne still lingered faintly in the air, a scent that felt like both comfort and torture. Every Sunday, I went to his grave. I would bring fresh flowers, clean the stone, pull out the weeds, and talk to him. I told him everything, about my week, about the weather, about how I missed the sound of him running down the stairs in the morning. It became my ritual. The world moved on, but I stayed frozen in that one unbearable truth. My child was gone. Friends drifted away over the years. They stopped knowing what to say, or maybe they just got tired of my sadness. I tried therapy, support groups, medication. Nothing could quiet the silence in this house. It's strange how grief becomes its own kind of company. It sits beside you, follows you from room to room, whispers in your ear when the night is too quiet. But there was one thing I never let go of, Ethan's phone number. I kept paying the bill month after month. People called it obsessive, but I didn't care. Sometimes, on sleepless nights, I'd call it just to hear his voicemail. "Hey, it's Ethan. Leave a message and I'll call you back." I'd whisper, "I miss you," before hanging up, pretending he'd somehow hear it wherever he was. That number was my thread to the past. Thin, fragile, and irrational, but it was mine. It was the last piece of him I could hold on to. So when that phone rang at 3:12 a.m., when his name appeared on the screen, it wasn't just a call. It was a promise that death hadn't stolen everything. That maybe, after all these years, My love had reached him somehow. I didn't know if it was a miracle or madness, but I knew one thing. If there was even a chance my son was reaching for me from wherever he was, I wasn't going to turn away. Because grief can bury a body, but it can't bury a mother's hope. The night after that call felt like a war between my mind and my heart. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the phone as if it were a living thing, something breathing and waiting to ring again. Every few minutes, I checked the call log, but there was nothing. No record, no missed calls, no number. Just blank history, as if the entire moment had been erased. Yet I could still hear his voice, that trembling, frightened whisper echoing through my head. "Mom, it's dark. I can't move. Help me." I couldn't sit still. The air inside my house felt heavy, almost suffocating. I kept glancing toward the picture of him on the dresser, taken the summer before the accident. Sunburned nose, messy hair, laughing so hard his eyes were nearly closed. I used to love that photo. That night, it felt like he was looking through me. My heart was pounding so fast I could feel it in my ears. Something deep inside me, that same instinct that used to wake me when he had nightmares as a child, was screaming that my son needed me again. By 3:45 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I threw on a coat over my pajamas, grabbed my keys, and drove through the dark streets toward the cemetery. The roads were empty, the city asleep, but I felt like something unseen was awake, watching me from the edges of the quiet. Every red light felt like a test, every gust of wind like a whisper telling me to turn back. But mothers don't turn back. Not when their child is calling for help. When I reached the gates of Greenwood Cemetery, the place was locked, as I knew it would be. The tall black iron bars shimmered under the thin light of the street lamp. I stood there for a moment, clutching the cold metal, breathing in the smell of wet earth and old flowers. For 15 years, I had walked through these gates every Sunday morning, but never at night. At night, cemeteries don't look peaceful. They look awake. I banged on the side door near the caretaker's hut until a small light flickered on. Mr. Lewis, the old night watchman, shuffled out, squinting through his glasses. "Mrs. Ward," he said, startled. "What on earth are you doing here? It's nearly 4 in the morning." "I need to see my son," I said, breathless. "Please. I need to go to his grave. It's urgent." He frowned, concern creasing his face. "Ma'am, it's the middle of the night. You know visitors aren't allowed in after dark. Did something happen?" I hesitated, my hands shaking. How could I tell him the truth? That my dead son had just called me from his own grave? I could barely believe it myself. I had a feeling," I said softly. "A strong feeling. Please, Mr. Lewis. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important." He looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. He had known me for years, had seen me every Sunday with flowers and tears. Maybe pity or worry made him relent. He grabbed his flashlight and keys. "All right, but only for a few minutes," he murmured. "Stay close." The iron gates groaned open, echoing through the still night. The sound made my stomach twist. We walked in silence along the narrow gravel path, the beam of his flashlight slicing through the fog that hung low over the graves. I knew every turn by heart, left at the angel statue, right at the row of oaks. My steps quickened as we neared Ethan's grave, an almost magnetic pull dragging me forward. When the flashlight beam finally fell on the headstone, my breath caught in my throat. Everything looked the same. The small marble plaque, the patch of grass I had planted myself, the flowers I'd left just a week before. There was no disturbance, no fresh soil, no sign that anything had been touched. But something still felt wrong. The air around his grave was colder than anywhere else, and there was a faint vibration in the ground, like the hum of something electrical buried deep below. I knelt, my fingers digging into the wet earth. "Ethan," I whispered. "If you can hear me, I'm here." Mr. Lewis hovered behind me, uneasy. Ma'am, maybe you should. Before he could finish, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I pulled it out, and there it was again, Ethan. The same name glowing against the darkness. The same number that should have been dead for 15 years. My hands shook as I hit answer. This time there was no static, no delay. Just breathing. Then a whisper, even softer than before. Mom, I'm still here. Please don't let them forget me. I felt the blood drain from my face. Ethan, where are you? I don't know, he murmured, voice trembling. It's dark, but I can hear you. I feel you nearby. My eyes darted toward the ground, the headstone, the earth that held my son. My mind screamed for logic, but my heart whispered the truth I didn't want to face. He was right below my knees, calling from a place he should never have been able to speak from. The flashlight flickered. The air grew icy. Mr. Lewis stepped closer, his voice trembling. Mrs. Ward, I think we should go. But I couldn't move. I pressed my palm flat against the cold stone, tears burning my eyes. Ethan, I'm here. I won't leave you. I promise. Then, just like that, the line went dead again. The silence that followed was so heavy it felt alive. The phone went black, the name vanished, and I was left kneeling in the cold dirt, realizing that for the first time in 15 years, my son's voice had returned. Not from memory, not from grief, but from somewhere that should have been impossible. I don't remember how long I knelt there after the call ended. The world around me seemed to dissolve. The wind, the crickets, even the faint hum of Mr. Lewis's flashlight, all of it faded into silence. My phone was still in my hand, screen black, no signal, no call log. But his voice still echoed inside my skull, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Mom, I'm still here. Please don't let them forget me. Mr. Lewis was saying something behind me, but I barely heard him. My fingers dug into the damp soil at the base of the headstone. The ground was cold, too cold for spring. The scent of earth and wet roots filled my lungs. Something inside me, something ancient, primal, the part of a mother that refuses to surrender, whispered that my son wasn't gone. He was calling out from beneath this ground, reaching through whatever separates life from death. I pressed my ear to the soil. It sounds ridiculous now, but I swear I heard something. Faint, rhythmic, like slow breathing, or maybe the soft vibration of words that hadn't yet formed. Ethan, I whispered into the earth. Can you hear me? A static crackle burst from my phone, even though it was locked and dark. I flinched, staring at the screen as it flickered to life on its own. The name Ethan appeared again, glowing pale blue. My hands trembled as I answered. At first, nothing, just a low hum, the kind you hear when you put a seashell to your ear. Then, his voice, trembling and hoarse. Mom, it's so tight. I can't move my arms. I can't breathe. I felt the world tilt under me. My voice came out in gasps. Ethan, where are you? Tell me what's around you. There was a pause, and then his answer came, soft, frightened, but clear. It's dark. I can feel wood above me. The air smells like dirt. I'm lying on something hard. It's small in here, Mom. I can't move. My stomach twisted. The air in my chest turned to ice. He was describing his coffin. My voice broke into a whisper. Ethan, listen to me. You were buried. Do you understand? You've been gone for 15 years. No, he said quickly, panic in his tone. That can't be. I'm talking to you. I can hear you. I'm cold, but I'm alive. I'm still here. Tears blurred my sight. The world around me swayed in and out of focus. Baby, you died in an accident. We buried you at Greenwood. I saw you. Stop, he cried, his voice cracking into a sob. Don't say that. I'm not dead. I'm not. Please help me, Mom. Please, I'm scared. It's getting harder to breathe. I pressed my free hand into the soil, my nails digging deep into the dirt. Ethan, I'm right here. I'll help you. Just hold on. Do you hear me? Hold on. The line crackled again, his breathing uneven. Mom, there's something next to me, he whispered. Something glowing. It's my old phone. The one you buried with me. It's lighting up. I froze. My throat closed. Your old phone. I whispered, remembering. He'd asked to be buried with it, his favorite black flip phone. I'd thought it was symbolic, a childish request. But now, 15 years later, it was somehow alive, glowing in the dark with him. Ethan, I said carefully, trying to keep my voice steady, look around you. Is there light coming from anywhere else? Can you see anything? He took a shuddering breath. No light. Just darkness. And that smell, it's like the earth is breathing. Mom, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. The connection sputtered, turning his words into fragments. Don't leave me, battery, dying. Ethan, wait. Stay with me. I screamed, gripping the phone like it was his hand. I'm coming for you. I'll find a way. The line went dead. I tried to call back. Nothing. I called again, each time met with the same message. This number does not exist. The same cruel phrase over and over, as if the universe was mocking me. Mr. Lewis finally put a hand on my shoulder. His voice was soft, trembling. Mrs. Ward, please. You should go home. Get some rest. I looked up at him, shaking, mud caked to my hands. He's alive, I whispered. He's calling from down there. He hesitated, pity flickering in his eyes. Sometimes grief plays tricks on the mind. You've loved him so long, maybe. I'm not imagining this. I snapped, louder than I intended. My voice echoed through the rows of graves, harsh and broken. You didn't hear him. I did. Mr. Lewis didn't argue. He simply helped me to my feet, guided me back through the fog, and locked the gates behind us. But as I drove home, the echo of my son's voice followed me. I kept replaying his words, the panic, the confusion, the sound of someone trapped in a place no one returns from. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the living room floor, staring at the phone on the coffee table. I knew what the rational world would say, that it was a dream, a hallucination born of grief and loneliness. But deep in my bones, I knew the truth. My son was reaching out from the ground, not to haunt me, but to ask for help. And no matter what I had to do, I would answer him. By dawn, the phone was still on the table, lifeless. I had sat awake all night, watching the gray light creep through the curtains, my thoughts spiraling between fear and disbelief. Every time the house creaked, I half expected it to ring again. But it didn't. Whatever had reached out to me in the darkness had vanished, leaving behind a silence that was almost cruel. When morning finally came, I made coffee I couldn't drink and stared out the window, watching the mist dissolve into daylight. The rational part of my mind kept whispering that none of this could have happened. That grief had finally hollowed me out, twisting my mind until I was hearing voices that weren't real. But deep down, I knew what I'd heard. A mother knows. I needed help, not from a therapist or a priest, but from someone who had known Ethan too, someone who couldn't dismiss it as delusion. There was only one person left who fit that description, his father, Mark. We hadn't spoken properly in years. After Ethan's death, our marriage cracked open like a fault line. He buried his pain under silence, while I drowned in mine. He'd remarried, built a new life, a new family, but I still knew his number by heart. My hands trembled as I dialed it, the phone cold against my ear. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice rough with sleep.
Hello.
It's me, I whispered. Claire. A pause. Then, wary. Claire, it's 6 in the morning. Is everything okay?
No, I said, my throat tightening.
I need to tell you something, but you have to promise to listen. Please, Mark. Something in my voice must have scared him because he didn't argue. All right, he said.
I'm listening.
I told him everything. The call, the voice, the words Ethan had said, how he described the darkness, the wood, the dirt. I didn't leave out a single detail. I expected him to hang up halfway through or tell me to get help. Instead, when I finished, there was only silence on the line.
Then he said, quietly, "Are you sure it was his voice?"
Yes,
I said without hesitation.
I know what I heard.
I know my son.
Another pause. I could almost hear him breathing, steady but heavy. That number hasn't existed for years, he said finally. The company recycled it long ago. It can't still be active. I checked, I said. There's no record of the call. It's not in the history. But I heard him, Mark. He said he's trapped.
He said he can't move.
Claire, he started, then stopped, searching for the right words. You've carried this pain for 15 years. Sometimes the mind. Don't, I snapped. Don't call it grief.
You didn't hear what I heard.
His voice softened. No, I didn't.
But I believe you think you did.
I closed my eyes, feeling tears burn behind them. You still keep his photo on your desk, don't you? I asked. You told me once you couldn't throw it away. He was silent again. That was answer enough.
Come here, I said finally.
Please.
I can't go through this alone.
2 hours later, he was standing in my doorway. For a moment, it felt like stepping backward in time. The same face, now older, lined with years and regret. He looked at me the way you look at a fragile object you're afraid to touch. You look exhausted, he said quietly.
You will too, I replied, after what I'm going to show you.
We sat at the kitchen table. I placed my phone between us, as if it were evidence.
He'll call again, I said. I know he will.
He studied me carefully, searching for the cracks in my sanity.
Claire, if you really believe that, then we'll wait together.
For the rest of the day, we waited. The hours dragged by in uneasy silence. Every time the phone buzzed, a text, an app notification, anything, my heart jumped. But it wasn't him. By evening, Mark stood up. Maybe he's not going to call again, he said softly.
Maybe it was a sign, a way for you to find peace.
I was about to argue when the phone lit up again. My breath caught in my throat. The name glowed bright and undeniable. Ethan. Mark froze. His face drained of color. Claire, you said that number didn't exist. It doesn't, I whispered. Answer it. We both leaned over the table as I hit accept and put it on speaker. There was static, then a voice, trembling, distant, but clear. Mom. Dad. Mark staggered backward, eyes wide. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then he whispered, Ethan. It's so cold, the voice said, choking on the words. But I can see a light now. It's small, but it's here.
I'm not alone anymore.
Mark's hand gripped mine so tightly it hurt.
Where are you, son? He asked, his voice breaking. There was a long pause, then, you're standing over me.
The phone went silent. I looked at Mark, and for the first time in 15 years, I saw the same fear in his eyes that had lived in mine. Mark didn't speak for a long time after the call ended. He just stood there, one hand pressed to his mouth, eyes fixed on the silent phone as if it might come alive again. The room felt smaller, colder, filled with something unseen and heavy. For the first time I saw it. Not disbelief, not logic, but fear. Real, human fear. The kind you feel when everything you thought was impossible suddenly becomes undeniable. He finally sank into the chair across from me. "I heard him," he whispered. "It was Ethan. I don't know how, but it was him." Tears spilled down my cheeks before I even realized I was crying. "He said we're standing over him," I said. "He must have meant the cemetery. He's still there, Mark. Still waiting." He rubbed his face, trying to think, but there was no reasoning left. 15 years, he muttered. "That's not possible. No voice lasts that long." "I don't care about what's possible anymore," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "He called us. He's asking for help. We have to do something." Mark looked at me, the disbelief in his eyes replaced by something else. Resignation. "What are you suggesting? That we dig him up?" The words hung between us, too terrible to say aloud. Yet they were the only ones that made sense. That night, as the sun bled out behind the trees, we went back to Ethan's room for the first time together in 15 years. Everything was exactly as he had left it. His books stacked unevenly on the shelf, the posters on the wall, the half-finished model airplane still waiting on the desk. Time had stood still here, frozen in the moment our son left it. Mark ran his hand along the bookshelf, his fingers tracing dust. "You never changed a thing," he said softly. "I couldn't," I replied. "If I moved even one thing, it felt like I'd be erasing him." He nodded slowly, then stopped at the desk. "Claire," he said, lifting something from the drawer. It was a small black notebook, frayed at the edges. His journal. I felt a tremor run through me. I'd seen that notebook 100 times but never opened it. I wasn't ready before. Now I was terrified to. Mark sat down on the bed and opened to the first page. The handwriting was messy but familiar. His. He read aloud. January 10th, 2010. Had the dream again. The crash. The rain. The headlights. Every time I wake up, I feel like I'm running out of time. My breath caught. That was 2 months before the accident. He kept reading, flipping through the pages. The entries were scattered thoughts, sketches, notes about school, friends, and dreams. Always dreams. Then, near the end, his voice cracked. March 10th. The day before the accident. He hesitated, then read, "If something happens to me, don't be sad, Mom. Don't be afraid, Dad. I'll find a way back. I promise. But if I can't, please bury my phone with me. I have a feeling I'll need it." Mark stopped reading. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the ceiling fan. I could barely breathe. "He knew," I whispered. "He knew something was going to happen." Mark closed the notebook, his hands shaking. "This is insane. It's like he predicted it." My heart pounded. What if this is what he meant by finding a way back? What if that phone, the one he was buried with, is how he's calling us? Mark looked at me, the disbelief fading into grim acceptance. "If you're right, then we need to see what's down there." I nodded, gripping his hand. "Tomorrow won't be soon enough. What if we lose him again?" He hesitated. "We can't just show up and dig up a grave, Claire. That's illegal." "I don't care," I said, my voice trembling with desperation. "If there's even a chance he's still there, still trapped, we have to try. He's our son." Mark's shoulders slumped. "Then we'll need help." He pulled out his phone and called someone, his old friend, Daniel Hart, who worked as a county coroner. A man of science, used to bodies and facts. When Mark told him what had happened, there was a long, stunned silence before Daniel finally said, "If you're serious, I can get you in after midnight. But if this is some delusion, Claire, it'll break you." "It already did," I said quietly. 15 years ago. That night, the plan was set. We would meet Daniel and Mr. Lewis, the cemetery's watchmen, after midnight. They'd bring tools, flashlights, shovels, and a small digging rig used for maintenance. It wasn't legal, it wasn't sane, but grief makes you deaf to both law and reason. Before we left, I went into Ethan's room one last time. I touched the photo on his desk, the same one I had looked at the night of the call. His smile seemed different now, as if it knew something I didn't. I whispered, "Hold on, my love. I'm coming." And for the first time in 15 years, the air in that room didn't feel empty. It felt alive. Midnight arrived wrapped in fog thick enough to hide our guilt. The cemetery gates creaked open and swallowed us into its silence. Daniel carried a small lantern that threw trembling circles of light across the graves, and Mr. Lewis followed behind with a shovel and the kind of look men wear when they know they're doing something they shouldn't but must. Mark and I walked last, side by side for the first time in years, bound together by fear and hope. When we reached Ethan's grave, I could barely stand. The earth looked untouched, the grass neat and still, but beneath it was the impossible. Daniel knelt, touching the ground. "If you want to stop, now's the time," he said quietly. "Once we open it, there's no going back." I shook my head. He called me. He asked for help. I won't stop now. The first bite of metal into soil was deafening. The steady rhythm of shovels filled the night. With every layer of dirt peeled away, my heartbeat grew louder. Hours passed. The moon slid across the sky. Finally, the shovel hit something solid, wood. A hollow thud that made all of us freeze. Mark looked at me. "This is it." They cleared the rest by hand, brushing the dirt from the lid. Daniel whispered a prayer under his breath. Together, the men pried it open. The scent that escaped wasn't rot. It was metallic, strange, mixed with something faintly sweet, like ozone after lightning. A soft, blue light glowed from inside the coffin. And there he was, Ethan. He looked exactly as he had the day we buried him. Peaceful, untouched by time, his hair neatly combed, his hands folded over his chest. But his phone, the one between his palms, was shining with an otherworldly pulse, each flicker matching the rhythm of a heartbeat. Daniel stepped back, whispering, "That's not possible." Mark reached down, trembling. "He's warm," he said, voice breaking. "Claire, his skin's warm." I touched his cheek. It felt alive, not cold, not decayed, but softly radiant, like the warmth that lingers after sunlight. My tears fell onto his face, and for a moment, I thought I saw his lips move. "Ethan," I whispered. "It's Mom. I'm here." The light from the phone flared, flooding the coffin, then spreading across his body. The ground beneath us vibrated, and the air filled with a deep, humming sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. I fell to my knees, blinded by the glow. When it faded, the silence was broken only by a soft gasp. His. Ethan's chest rose, then fell, then rose again. Mark grabbed my arm, eyes wide with disbelief. "He's breathing." Daniel stumbled backward, his voice shaking. "No, this can't." But it could. Because it was. Ethan's eyes opened. Not blank or ghostly, but clear, focused, alive. "Mom," he whispered. I couldn't speak. I just held him as the impossible became real. His pulse beat beneath my fingertips, faint, fragile, but there. We lifted him out together, wrapping him in the blanket I'd brought, the one he used to take on school trips. The blue light faded from the phone, its job done. We carried him through the fog, through the gates, into a new dawn. In the days that followed, doctors couldn't explain it. There was no medical record that could justify his condition. His body showed no decay, no trauma, only the faint scar from the crash long healed over. They called it a phenomenon. I called it a promise kept. Ethan told us later, in quiet pieces, that he'd never truly been gone. "I was between places,"
he said.
But I kept hearing your voice, Mom. Every time you talked to me at the grave, it pulled me closer.
Love doesn't stop where death begins.
Now, when I look at him, alive, breathing, laughing again, I don't think about graves or ghosts. I think about how love can reach across anything, even the end. Because maybe death isn't a wall. Maybe it's a door waiting for the right voice to open it. So if you've lost someone, hold on to their memory. Talk to them. Maybe they're closer than you think. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every message. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss stories like this one. Stories that remind us that love, faith, and family are stronger than fear. Your support helps me share more true life mysteries that bring hope back into the darkness. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes even silence carries a voice.